So welcome all. This is Meten at Plutonic Plains, and this is
Mara Miharis from
I'm going to introduce
Unscripted
him.
Liberation
This is
Code.
Mario. Yeah, yeah. And so me and Mario, we did a video a while back, Mario, with Casey, and all three of us, and it's on your channel and it's on mine.
Yeah,
And I think people really enjoyed it. I think we really gave a lot of great info,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so we're back again. We're gonna do 2027 today. We're gonna do a couple charts. We're gonna exaggerate it as much as possible and fearmonger the horrors of 2027. Just kidding.
Yeah.
We'll have fun with it. But I think Mario had some great things he shared with me initially, and I think that's of what's happening right now in the moment. And I feel like we're in such a precipice moment right now before July, before Jupiter goes into Leo, that and the nodes go into Aquarius and Leo and Venus is in Leo right now.
hmm
I want you to share, if you would, man, like what you shared recently about what's going on at the FIFA World Cup, and just it was just such a great anecdote to start this off.
Yeah. Well, what I was sharing to Meten earlier was the beautiful coming together of people from different world cultures during the World Cup, with the highlight being South Korea and Mexico falling in love with each other because the World Cup is being hosted in South America, in all the Americas, so Mexico, Canada, and the US. And so it's like 100 and so odd games in the span of a few weeks. And so uh, thousands of people from all over the world are flying to these three countries to participate and support their team. And South Korea, when they played in Mexico, the South Koreans and the Mexicans just fell in complete total in love with each other. And I really enjoyed seeing that because it it brought out the humanness in that's inherent in all of us. It brought out the heart and the humanness and just the true deep desire that everybody has, which is to have fun and to be in love and to be animated and enjoy and in celebration. That is an ideal heaven on earth sort of template. And I love that because the algorithms from the corporate overlords, right? They've been spending trillions and trillions of dollars over the last several decades to create division, to put filters over your mind so you can't see another human. You see all of these prejudices and programs and things to the point where the overlays of what you see become so thick that you can't even have heart-to-heart human connections with other people anymore. And so I love the phenomenon that's occurring under this World Cup because I feel like it's disrupting the algorithm, and it's sort of laughing in the face of the corporate overlords saying no matter how much you try to feed the propaganda of dialectic strategies to divide people, the human heart is always going to overpower that. And so it gave me a little bit of hope. And there was another interesting thing
Just a
about,
little.
yeah, yeah.
Just
Just a
a
little, just a little.
little.
But it gave me there was another interesting thing about the World Cup that I didn't mention before we hit record. And I actually wrote something about it on my website. And it's in the World Cup, it's very similar to how like football is, the Super Bowl is, right? Where we all, all of us, tinfoil hat, wearers understand that the half time show for the Super Bowl, right? There's all these Illuminati Masonic rituals and like subliminal suggestions and the performance and all of that. Well, there was something very similar in the opening ceremony for the World Cup.
So I heard,
Where,
yeah.
yeah, there were a lot of symbolism, a lot of things, but one of the main things was that the opening ceremony was centralized around honoring ancient Mayan traditions. So there were people in the whole like ancient Mayan regalia, or however you pronounce that, wearing the feathers and all of that, and they were doing the dances and the ritual. And it very much gave a lot of us conspirators vibes of like reenacting ancient Mayan sacrifice rituals. And with Neptune being in Aries and with the World Cup starting during the apex of Uranus and Gemini squaring the North and South node, right? And when we're talking about frequencies and egregors and entities and spiritual energies that can be activated, because there are billions of people that are plugged into the World Cup right now, like billions around the entire world. And then here's this reenactment of a Mayan, sacrifice ritual on the world stage. Well, what happened, within that window of that ceremony, of that ritual, um, and the weekend of Uranus squaring the nodes, was in Brazil. I don't know if you've seen the video, but in Brazil, there was a 21-year-old woman who was going bungee jumping, and the operators who threw her off the bridge forgot to attach the fucking bungee cord to her harness. So they literally carried a woman overhead and threw her down to her death, hundreds of feet. And when they threw her down to her death, they were like, "Oh no." And so when it comes to like the Neptunian, the Neptune and Aries, it's like this smoke in the spiritual battlefield, right? And so like when I see that with my spiritual eyes of discernment, that video, what I see is like a moment of people checked out for spiritual forces to kind of, take an opportunity in, you know, having people sort of check out momentarily, disassociate momentarily, like not really see what's obviously right in front of them until it's too late. And now there's been an innocent person who's been sacrificed, right? And so, interesting things like that that I've been noticing. And I wrote a whole article on my website, sleepingshaman.com. It's under the blogs if anybody wants to really read the full report on how I broke that down. But yeah, I'll digress from there.
I always say, man, that the outer planets are incursions upon everyday Saturnian reality. And
Mm,
these incursions come about through possession, through, in very strange ways.
hmm
So when you look at Neptune and Aries, like you're suggesting, I would say you're looking at athletics, you're looking at physical movement not being, being possessed for a moment or being out of the body and these things occurring.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
all
yeah.
Aries type actions and incidences. And with Uranus, the same thing, but on the mental plane. Uranus being the
hmm
higher octave of Mercury, with
hmm
Uranus going through into Gemini, the Gemini suns, the Gemini moons, the Gemini ascendants, the Gemini Mercuries, they're here, but then they're not.
Yeah.
They're here and then they're not.
hmm
And the third would be Pluto and Aquarius. And we know the Aquariuses are going through a relentless transmutation of their physicality
Yeah.
with Pluto in, an Aquarius. So they're going through it too.
hmm
And those are the three, planets that are not visible to us, not
Right.
perceptible in a Saturnian way.
Right.
So, and Aquarius is the social, well, it's the hermit, right? It's the water bearer, but it's also like a totalitizing kind of like the general world, the general vision of the world,
Right.
um, the Aquarius vision. And so these are the 3 points, and they're all connected, right? Because it's air and fire.
hmm
So air and fire is doing this thing where it's
hmm
taking the human spirit out, in and out of the body, and
hmm
it's being the energy, it's transmuting that Aries, Gemini, and Aquarius energy. So I've been saying this for a while that these years, this year, last year, next year, and we're going to go into 2027, we're going to talk about that, show some charts. These are the years when something is being completely transmuted in our consciousness because it's the spirit, right? Fire is the spirit.
Yeah.
And then air is the mind, the Western mind, the Eastern mind, the mental um, plane of
Hmm.
humanity. And
Hmm.
all this change is occurring. And, we're all here in the body talking to each other one moment. And then in the next moment, where did you go? What happened? Oh, I don't know. I just left. I
Yeah.
left my body. Well, where'd you go? I don't know. I don't know quite yet, you know?
Miles away.
So it's this, it's such a trip. Like I have some friends that are aware when they leave their body and where it goes, where the spirit goes. Like maybe it's with someone else,
Yeah.
or maybe it's far from the body and they're sick and they're like healing and the spirit's like going to get help or going to get connection somewhere and come back. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
this is this is so interesting, that example that you shared. But the
Hmm.
other consequence of that example is that these rituals become these rituals that are being given so much energy, so much attention,
Yeah.
right? That it's manifesting that energy in other places when that moment happens where someone's not present. Oh, I forgot to connect this, and now someone's sacrificed.
Yeah.
Like these energies are
Yeah.
being charged in
Yep.
these outer planets. And so
Yep.
they come off as incursions into our everyday reality. And we're like, well, how did you forget? Like, what do you mean? Like, and the guy was probably, probably had some aspects that day that affected him, you know?
Yeah. 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 And then within the same 24 hours, this musical artist, which I'm not really familiar with his work at all, Oliver Tree died in a helicopter crash in Brazil. Um, Literally within the same 24 hours as that woman was thrown off the bridge. Um, and so that was a very, and like there was just so many things that occurred back to back um, with that weekend, and the elements of Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and
What weekend
Aquarius.
are you talking about? Let's share for everybody.
Uh, Last weekend, the weekend of June 12th.
That was the Venus Jupiter.
Yes, yes. Venus,
No,
uh,
not Venus Jupiter. Sorry, not Venus Jupiter, but is
Well,
it?
no, no, no. That was so June 12th was the apex of Uranus and Gemini squaring the north and south node
Oh, okay.
at 2 degrees down to the minute. And then in going into the weekend was the moon and Gemini transit where we had the new moon that following Sunday. So the 12th was on a Friday, and then Saturday the moon entered Gemini, and then Sunday, we had the new moon in Gemini. And so that whole weekend, there were a lot of things that occurred. And I like what you said about with the mental plane, with the Uranus and Gemini and checking out and the spiritual plane. Because one of the things that has been sort of foreshadowed, with the ruling powers that be is um like for example, the increase of security and surveillance in the world for safety and security. So it's like sacrifice a little bit of your liberties so we can implement more technology to make sure you're safe. So it's like we're going to create situations that can incite fear and put you through real life situations. There was a mass shooter event, but if we implemented this new technology utilizing AI and cameras and smart cities, we could have prevented this from happening, and all those people didn't have to die. So there's kind of like this let's create problem solution type of things towards having a more corporatized surveillance state. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the problem reaction solution strategy, where they
Hmm.
introduce the problem and then they already have the reaction waiting behind the curtains.
Hmm.
I mean, they have the solution waiting behind the curtains, and then the people, they psychologically induce a certain reaction, and then it's like, oh, it's cool. We got the Kool-Aid. Just drink it. You're good.
Hmm.
Everything's gonna go great.
But like,
Over and over and over again.
yeah, yeah. So like for example, that same weekend, there's a mall like 40 minutes from where I live, and there was a shootout between a group of young adults, like teenagers, young adults. There was a shootout, and I watched the news broadcast for that, and it was like a few minutes long. And in the news broadcasts, they're interviewing people that were there, and it was like all the people were saying the same thing, and they had the same energy, right? And it was very authentic. They were like, "Man, that was so scary, blah blah blah. My kids were here, it was our worst fear coming through, blah 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 blah." So it was like genuine expressions of fear and concerns. But the last person that they interviewed, who identified as a mall business owner, right? He had a business in the mall. This dude's energy was way different than the authentic sincerity of the civilians that were there. He was just more composed. He even had a smile. And what he said in his interview was a well-polished narrative. He didn't go into fear or any of that kind of stuff. He just right from the beginning said it's 2026, not 2019. We deserve better technology, better surveillance, so this kind of criminal activity doesn't happen anymore. And so, you know, listening to the whole thing, there was something off about his frequency. There was that sincerity in what he was saying wasn't the same as everyone else, and it seemed more like, the solution that we're delivering. And then it got me thinking, okay, so was the shootout a false event? Was it a false event, right? Because we know that there's false events that these people can do sometimes. And I was feeling into it, intuitively, and what came to me was like, no, it was not a false event. Just what's occurring with the Uranus and Gemini and the Neptune and Aries and the increase of technology and the algorithm is that people have been a mass majority of people, especially the young ones, especially the teenagers, because I don't know if you've seen around the country, there's been like huge teenage riots and like attacks in major cities. Have you seen any of that?
Hmm.
So like hordes of teenagers would just go out into the city and they'd just start rioting and beating the shit out of people and like robbing stores, and it just gets out of control because it's literally like hundreds of teenagers that should be in school that are just fucking rioting and pillaging and just acting crazy. Well, this is the generation of people, these teenagers, this is the generation that are born with this. They're born with devices. They're born with screens. And so the frequencies and the algorithms and the music and the television that they listen to eventually, what's happened is that, it's all designed for so many subliminal suggestions to seep into the subconscious mind that under certain transits and certain circumstances, there's always going to be situations that occur that were, you know, they organically happened, but in a way it was manufactured to organically happen due to the level of hypnosis and subliminal suggestion that unsuspecting youth are constantly exposing themselves to. And then they enact, these moments of chaos, which then generates the opportunity for the well-polished narrative to say, these troubled youth and blah, 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 blah. And that's why we're going to add more cameras and facial recognition and all this advanced technology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the flock cameras and all that,
The
right?
flock cameras, yeah.
Yeah. And then you have groups like Blade Runners in Europe that are starting to take those down.
Hell yeah. We need that in America.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, let's get into this.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing that because we're sharing like both sides in terms of the manipulation that still rules the public kind of face on some levels, those who are just wired in to the gadgets too much, and those of us who are still holding on to the human heart, still organic,
Hmm.
still like still understanding the utility of things like AI, but having boundaries with it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's having very safe boundaries with it
Hmm.
because with Neptune in Aries, with especially with Uranus and Gemini, like every moment affects us. Like you and I are on a digital interface right now,
Hmm.
and the particular company that we're utilizing this video to relate to each other
Hmm.
may have certain purposes, may or may not,
Hmm.
and just the fact that this interface is related, open, we have to open up the internet, the portal to do this,
Hmm.
means that we're susceptible to certain streams of information, and
Yeah.
that's affecting us. So, there's two perspectives in the New Age, or I don't want to say the New Age, but in just the vision of what is occurring, on a more metaphysical level. And one is that, oh, we're humans, we're like, our bodies are coming on, turning, the genetics are turning on, and we're overpowering these frequencies, and that's cool. Also, there's another perspective that says we need to clear out these images and frequencies from our field. The more
Hmm.
we involve ourselves with movies and internet, we have to balance. We have to like make sure we're getting nature and the experience of nature still in us because we're still organic.
Hmm.
And those are kind of two perspectives. Sometimes they're viewed as one. And there's almost a third perspective, which is being able to retain that connection um, with yourself, just to come back to yourself. Despite having access to these things, being able to come back and sense yourself, sense
Hmm.
your own heart, be in your own body, know what
Hmm.
that feels like, know how to feel through pain without associating it with the story that was made up with some other person or some group,
Right.
right? I mean, that's all important to a degree to delineate that and get that clear. But, with the South Node and Virgo, it's like the details aren't really important right now. What's important is that I feel out whatever pain is in my heart and not attach a story to it, not attach a
Hmm.
drama to it, which will
Hmm.
get more prevalent in the next couple of months when Jupiter goes into Leo.
Right.
But at the same time, it will open up the human heart to maybe dramatize, but then behind that dramatization, once that's over with, to feel and to be human, to express that
Yeah.
heart, which is already happening with Venus and Leo,
Yes.
starting the expansion. Jupiter will create the larger expansion. And so that'll take us into next year. I mean, there'll be the retrogrades of Venus and Mercury in the fall as they go to the underworld in Scorpio, and that'll affect us financially. But I feel, well, usually the fall is when we feel the financial impacts of things. But as we move into 2027, and some people have been talking about it as if it's a veil, as if it's something we really cannot penetrate.
Hmm.
And so I want to start with the first chart on February
Hmm.
14th.
Hmm.
Now, this chart will be 6 days, Mario was mentioning 6 days after the year of the goat begins, and it'll be
Yeah.
the year of the fire goat.
Yeah.
And that'll be February 6th. And then on February 14th, Valentine's Day, will be when, as Ra made known through human design, that will be when the right angle cross of planning shifts over to the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix.
Mm.
And once that occurs, there's going to be a change on the mental plane. I mean, it's already been happening for the last couple years. We've already been feeling the effects of the human support systems beginning to become unstabilized.
Yeah.
I think Uranus and Taurus made that known over the last 7 years.
Yeah.
And so our systems are not behaving or taking care of things as they used to. There's more and more bureaucratic problems and red tape that makes things difficult to work in such a way for humans. And with this transition, I'm not going to speak too much about it. I'll show the chart. Me and Mario will talk about it for a minute, see what we get from it. Neither of us looked at this prior.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to send a request to get permission to share.
Permission granted.
And let's see what we have. So then I'll pull up the chart here. So all I could notice right away, I'll share right away what I noticed was in this chart, one of the most significant human design, oh, that's not the one, human design gates is going to be, or is, gate 55. And in human design, that corresponds with Pisces, 0 to 5 degrees. And what do we have in this chart? We have Mercury, the emissary of the sun, at 4
Hmm.
degrees Pisces. So
Hmm.
Mercury is the messenger and it brings the message to all the planets. This transition of the right cross is something occurring on the mental plane. It's beginning on the mental plane before it gets to the lateral mind and filtrates through all the cells of the universal body as well as the individual bodies.
Hmm.
And we see it here, Mercury 4 degrees Pisces. It's right there in gate 55, which is changing. And that's a gate connected to the solar plexus emotional center on the right side of the human design. So those who have that
Oh,
gate,
and Mercury's retrograde too.
yes, it is. So
Wow.
all the way back
Oh,
through that gate.
mm.
Wow. I just noticed that now. But
Yeah.
not only will it be in retrograde, but it will be opposing Mars in retrograde in Virgo.
Mm.
So
In-
that adds layers and nuance to that story.
yes.
Again, and then there it is. Jupiter will continue in Leo at 21 degrees, but it'll be retrograde. So it'll be going back over probably those 10, 15 degrees of Leo. Wow, interesting. And it'll be opposing the sun at this time. There'll be a Sun Jupiter opposition.
Right. 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 And Jupiter will be on the south node.
Yep, right there. North node in Aquarius, 20 degrees. South node in Leo, 20 degrees. Jupiter will be right on the south node.
Wow.
So a lot of things leaving. You know, the south node acts as like an open, just a hole in reality where things pour out of.
Yeah.
And the north node is where things pour into. So the
Mm.
south node releases what is not, and it's being that opening is expanded with Jupiter in the south node. So that's a whole shift of whole new bunches of energy coming in. And how's it coming in? Well, it was coming in through the imprint of Pluto about 6 months back when Pluto was here in this chart, conjunct the North Node. I mean, that's almost to a year. Because we're going to start off with Pluto. Well, not yet, but in maybe 3, 4 months, 5 months in the fall, we'll have Pluto conjuncting the North Node.
Yeah.
So it'll be the energy that will be brought in will be scrutinized by Pluto, and Pluto will be separating the wheat from the chaff,
Yeah.
to quote an idiom, and
Hmm.
it will be verifying whether what's true is coming forth or not.
Hmm.
So it'll be sifting through. But yeah, this is and
Interesting.
we have Sun square Moon in this chart. Taurus is 2 degrees from an exact square with the Sun.
Hmm.
So on a mundane level, this is the leaders, and this is the people in
Mm.
conflict with each other, in tension.
Yeah.
The leaders saying, "Oh, we're going to do this." The people saying, "No, we don't feel like that. That doesn't feel correct."
Mm.
And Taurus moon is exalted here. So we have the moon, the people's opinion, the people's emotions, what's on the people's minds. What are they thinking? All that is very strong at this period of time.
Wow. Interesting.
Anything else you want to add in?
Well, I can't get over the Mercury. retrograde in Pisces. Because last year's first Mercury retrograde was in Pisces. And it was in Pisces the entire time. And this year it looks like, it's going to start in Pisces, but regress back into Aquarius. And it might even make the Cazimi in Mercury, um, the Cazimi at 29 degrees Aquarius, maybe I'm guessing, um,
Oh
after
yeah.
after this day. And so, the Mercury in Pisces is like I love it because I'm Mercury ruled as a Gemini, and Mercury is not really at his best in Pisces, but I appreciate Mercury in Pisces because to me this is where our frame of thinking and how we receive and process information transcends mundane logic, and we start trying to understand hidden meanings and messages in everyday simple things, like a spider web that is on my window on a foggy morning. you know why did the spider make a web on that window facing west on this particular morning? There must be a meaning to that. Spirit must be communicating to me. And also, I had a strange dream. So Mercury and Pisces to me is that kind of thinking where it's like, it's not going based off of just logical, mundane things. It's where we're trying to stretch beyond that, and pierce through the veil. And so, like you're saying, that this is the day where the frequency of planning, or the right angle across of planning, is falling off, and we're going into the right angle of the sleeping phoenix, and it's during a Mercury retrograde. And so Mercury retrograde, one of the importance of it is because the mind moves quicker than our conscious awareness, and the mind can become overloaded before we are able to become fully aware of everything we've shoved into our mind. So, the mind, body, and spirit are three different things. Mercury is the mind, and the sun's the body, or the spirit. And with Mercury needing to retrograde, it's a period of our spirit, of our consciousness catching up to all of the stimuli that the mental body has been acquiring and doing. And so with this Mercury retrograde in Pisces, I see it as sort of people, or us, that are tuning into things, getting that sense and feeling before the knowing. So we may feel kind of like in and using Star Wars as an example, how the Jedis can go, whoa, there's been a disturbance in the Force. But that's as far as their knowing goes, right? They don't know what happened or where it happened. All that they were able to do is sense that there's a disturbance in the Force. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing, is like the collective not becoming fully aware, not really knowing the massive shift that just occurred, but sensing, whoa, something just happened, and we don't know what it is yet, and we don't know what it's going to look like. And so, like, so I really like that. And then the fact that I'm I want to say I'm like 80% sure that Sun Mercury Cazimi, I feel like it's going to happen at like 29 degrees Aquarius, right? Which is that anaretic degree of Aquarius, of the sign of the I know. And it'll be, oh my God, I'm so curious. Yeah, anyways, um, yeah, a lot of interesting things. And I bet that I wonder, yeah, I don't know when that Mercury retrograde will begin, but I'm hoping it'll also contact that North Node in Aquarius, um, which is the messenger, meeting that portal of destiny in the future and the unknown. So this is, an interesting period of there being some major shifts and disturbances in the force, and humanity being able to see all the things that are happening on the chessboard, but like watching two players playing chess against each other, and you can see all the things. You don't know what that player is thinking and what moves he's planned, and you don't know what the other player's thinking and what moves they've planned. The only time you know it is when they've actually made the move. And so it's like this high level of intensity where on the chessboard, it's like, okay, what's going to happen? Because at this point, like anybody can hit checkmate, and it seems like it's a stalemate. And so we don't know what anybody's moves are at this point until someone makes a move. Does that make sense?
It's powerful because two things relate to that. One is that the idea of the Force, or how the Jedi and the Sith acknowledged the Force, was as this field of energy, right? This, it's like very much like Taoism, the field of energy of all that is, a lot of life force energy, and where we meet the life force energy. And to me, when they say disturbance in the Force, I always feel like it's an inimical effect of the outer planets disrupting the frequency of the Saturn realm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we feel the impact of the personal planets and the Saturn realm and Mercury and Pisces, but these are all energies that are moving about the campfire of
Yeah.
humanity. But
Yeah.
when there's like there's lightning or thunder or an earthquake, those are all inimical threats to human consciousness, and they
Mm,
come from the imperceptible outer planets.
yes.
And so
I
that's like
love that.
Uranus. That's like Uranus coming in with the thunder, right?
Yeah.
Or Neptune coming in with the vision, right? That's of a
Uh-huh.
different time period, right? These
Uh-huh.
are all these are all forces that penetrate through the temporal and spatial boundaries of Saturn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is not there's really no difference between time and space. But
Mm-hmm.
these forces introduce us to that concept because we have to simultaneously engage with these disturbances
Yeah.
which come in through these outer planets. And I think that when the Jedi's express it, there's a huge pull or a huge force occurring, and it's either an entropic or a centripetal force. It's something's being pulled apart or pushed together.
Yeah.
And they're usually in moments where, like, symbolic figures like Darth Vader, which is very Plutonic, or Saturnian, is dealing with something threatening to his character, right? Saturn.
Yeah.
Saturn's being threatened by one of the Jedi or something, and the Jedi's represent the Jupiterian forces. One would guess,
Mm-hmm.
um, but they really don't, because
Mm-hmm.
really what the Jedi's and the Sith, for example, are representing are just the forces of entropy and its opposite itself. Because really, if you think about it, the Jedi Council was all about order. And so
Yeah.
when it becomes too ordered and loses your honest originality, unique character,
Mm-hmm.
then it gives the power to the other side.
Right.
And so the balance of the force is balancing between order and chaos. And so the Sith and the Jedi are really interchangeable in the world of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the force that decides what is in power, as in such as what archetype it's representing more strongly, more
Mm-hmm.
correctly to what needs to be experienced.
Mm.
In other words, what I'm saying for everybody is the Jedi had deserved to lose at the end of Star Wars 3
Mm.
because they had become too calcified and weak and
Right.
controlled, and they
Right.
couldn't detect the Sith Lord that was in their midst 5 feet away for the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they deserve what they got
Right.
because they lost their power. So
Wow.
they became a Saturnian force in themselves.
Uh-huh.
And Saturnian must be shifted and changed by the outer incursions of Uranus and Neptune and Pluto.
Uh-huh.
It must renew itself, right? It
Yeah.
must balance with Jupiter. I guess what we're talking about here is that Jedi and forces and the Sith balancing the Jupiterian expansion, relentless expansion versus contraction of Saturn, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I just bring that up because that human obsession with this group is right, that group's wrong, or this group is leading us to human evolvement and this group's not. It's just like the forces of power. It's like power is not something that one can hold to. Power moves where it does.
Yeah.
And just the same with collective groups of humanity. Like this group may have humanity's righteousness in mind 1 minute, and then the next minute could be taken over.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so what needs to happen is humans need to always be discerning of what holds the power of the human heart and truth.
Right.
We can't just go to sleep and say, "Oh, this group has it. We're going to defend this group forever." No,
Hmm.
that group may lose heart,
Right.
and so another group may have to take over and
Hmm.
stand for humanity. So
Hmm.
these forces are forces that we can't always catch in a body, in a collective body even. The
Yeah.
human heart is wherever it appears. Like you said, like you're a great example of the Mexican people and the South Korean people coming together at the
Hmm.
World Cup and just
Hmm.
loving on each other and just celebrating the vitality of life and the fun of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. So I kind of went too far, but
No,
um,
that was great. I loved the added depth you gave to the Star Wars analogy. That was brilliant. And I'm rusty on my Star Wars knowledge. I've seen the movies, but like a long time ago, and I was not really too into it at that time. But another thing that occurred to me was that this day, February 14th, 6 days prior or a few days, when we have the Chinese New Year, that Chinese New Year, I believe, will also be a solar eclipse new moon in Aquarius within proximity of a conjunction to that North Node in Aquarius too. And I'm not too adept in human design at all, but this whole for me personally, because I'm also born with a North Node Aquarius, South Node Leo, so I'll be going through a nodal return under this transit beginning, July. But to me, South Node Leo and North Node Aquarius has always, like, what I've kind of personally interpreted and tuned into is it's this bridge between a golden ancient era and the potential of a future era, and bring in the karmic energies of the past, of the golden era of the past, and tapping into future probabilities and trying to anchor in that future to bring in a new golden era into the now. South Node and Leo to me has always given me resonance of like ancient Egypt, or like other ancient civilizations like ancient Maya or Incan culture, which was like sun worship. But Egypt feels very much in alignment with the the energy of the lion, the feline, the lion, and how the pyramids, are aligned with the Sirius B stars, right? The Sirius B. We have the pyramids aligned with the constellations in Sirius B, and because we're the South Node Leo, North Node and Aquarius. To me, it's this bridge of the past and the future, but also advance civilization from out of this world, North Node Aquarius, coming into Earth. And so, what I mean by that is the influence of extraterrestrials, right? Or extraterrestrial frequencies or whatever coming down to Earth and assisting humanity in creating a golden age era. So, like ancient Egypt, they really felt an alignment with the Sirius B constellation, the dog star, right? And a lot of their occult practices was about how to acquire enough spiritual energy and wisdom and knowledge to traverse the underworld after life. So a lot of it was centered around, are you equipped and mastered enough to navigate the underworld when that physical body dies? So you can travel through the realms of the underworld and access the celestial bridge that will return your soul to Sirius B, the dog star, right? And in my readings, in my findings, which might not align with a lot of other things, but I'm born with the right angle sleeping cross of the Phoenix and all this, and I'm born with North Node Aquarius and South Node Leo, and Uranus is currently on my Gemini, so I feel like I have some, cards to pull here. But so from what I've come to understand, like beings like Hathor, right, which was a huge goddess deity that was a major figure that helped ancient Egypt, become the civilization that it became, right? So here we have this very advanced civilization, ancient Egypt, right? Which there's a lot of mystery and things we don't know about it, and we're trying to remember and grasp. So South Node and Leo always reminds me of that kind of energy. And we could even go into like the mysteries of ancient China, right? Because these are things, China is something that's just sort of in the background that we don't really think about, unless that's something you're interested in and you chose to learn and dive into ancient China. But China has been existing and just as long as everything else in the world. So there's a lot of ancient mysteries in China as well with the Dakinis and the different other goddesses and gods that they've connected with themselves, and they all kind of share a resonance, right? Higher celestial beings have descended from the heavens and have come down and assisted in creating golden eras for humanity. But then at some point, we've descended and fell into a different order. So South Node Leo has always kind of given me that sort of feeling. And with the North Node in Aquarius, it's this in-between state of trying to remember connecting with our star brothers and sisters. Because in this day and age, it's something that is like sort of taboo, right? In this day and age, if you're a believer, then you're nuts, you're crazy. This day and age, we put more power in the religion of science and what science can prove than our own heart and our own spirit and our own experiences. And so with Uranus being in Gemini for the next 7, 8 years. The last time Uranus was in Gemini was from the years 1943 to 1949, which was when America started to experience its first UFO craze. That was the period when that pilot Kenneth Arnold saw nine flying orbs around Mount Rainier in Washington State. That was when the CIA was formed. That's when the crashing in Roswell happened. That's when Area 51 was created. It's when the earliest stages of brainwashing and mind control, birthing the MK Ultra project, was initiated. And there was a lot of alien UFO phenomenon that started to increase during that last Uranus and Gemini transit. And towards the end of that was also when Aleister Crowley had passed away, one of the most infamous occultists in our modern day. And Aleister Crowley during that time was all over the world performing rituals and things like that and opening portals. And if you go into some of the things that he's done and the orders that he's worked with, in a lot of his writings, they talk about how in places in where they've done these rituals and ceremonies with the land and open portals, they've experienced more alien phenomenon, more orbs, more things. So a lot of folks believe that some of that work that they were doing created the opening for there to be more extraterrestrial supernatural phenomenon to sort of start coming into Earth. And Gemini communication, Uranus, this higher form of communication that's more cosmic, that's more galactic. So I feel like the return of this Uranus and Gemini transit is going to loop back into all of the things that were sort of seeded during the last time Uranus was in Gemini, meaning there that we're bound to receive a lot more confirmation, and we're seeing it right now with the recent release of all the UFO documents. Because remember, also Trump was born during the last Uranus and Gemini cycle, so he's currently going through a Uranus return and was born during a lunar eclipse with the North Node in Gemini. So,
And he was born, just if I can insert really quickly because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
fun. The year he was born, 1946, about 2 or 3 months before, was the Babylon working ceremony with L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, and Marjorie Cameron, which was the sex magic ritual that brought in the new aeon that Crowley said he wasn't for that. He was against them doing this. But
Whoa.
Parsons got together with L. Ron Hubbard because because Parsons had looked at Marjorie Cameron and she looked like a certain goddess from the past that he was familiar with. And so he
Mm,
selected her. And of course, Parsons was likely murdered because he created rocket systems and but he was likely murdered. And L. Ron Hubbard went to create the most, popular religion, one of the most popular, powerful religions of all time, Scientology.
mm,
And so whatever they opened up, it's been rumored to say.
mm.
Now, my question is always, did they open up a sales agency, a really good propaganda agency? Because we have to keep in mind that, all this things that people started to see in their dreams and write books about, like Whitney Strieber and all this stuff, these little green men and all this stuff, it
Hmm.
was all just like the idea of space travel or the idea of landing on the moon, these or just like what space looks like, right? All this is like photography. All this is
Hmm.
like human imagination.
Hmm.
It's not to say it doesn't exist or that aliens don't exist or do exist, but we've become crowded. Our imagination was crowded with these kind of seemingly fictitious propaganda machines that just
Yeah,
spewed all this out. But
yeah,
it just because people reference the Babylon working ceremony as what opened up the vistas of time and space and allowed all these like strange phenomenon of UFOs and Roswell, which occurred I think months later in the same year.
wow.
So it gets, I mean, the magic world gets really interesting. The
Uh-huh.
magic, right? The
Yeah,
differentiation between high magic and lower magic.
uh-huh.
It gets really interesting, but it's just, there's been so much work on both sides. It's almost like reality began to be fabricated at this point,
Yeah,
you know? And
yeah.
so here we are again in another Uranus and Gemini.
Hmm.
And how are we assessing what's occurring to our eyes? Well,
Yeah.
I'm very much a stickler for keeping in mind that our Saturnian reality is going to be invaded with these strange temporal inserts of other realities.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
these are incursionary forces of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto
Uh-huh.
coming in and showing us these weird images. And we're like, what? And then we're transcended to like these other space-time images. And we're like, is this real? Is this not real? What does it mean that something's real or not real? Does it
Uh-huh.
mean that Saturnian reality okays it or doesn't, and that makes it
Right.
real on some other level. So
Right.
it's to me it's fascinating, but it is an important marker you bring up that this
Hmm.
happened during another Uranus and Gemini transit in 1946, the year Trump was born, the year this
Hmm.
ceremony occurred, the
Hmm.
year, many claim the rift in space and time was opened up and all
Hmm.
these forces came in and got more power. There's
Mm.
another period in 1970 that the astrologer, I think, no, not Sybil Leek, but there's another astrologer that talks about 1970 or 60, 60 something, where she claims the Antichrist was born
Mm.
when there was a load of planets in Capricorn,
Wow.
and it was a particular date. I have her book. I'll have to check it again.
Okay.
But it's fascinating. But these different they all correlate back to this point where there's a book by there's a book called The Light of Egypt by Charles I'm forgetting the last name, Burgon, Charles Burgon. And in that book he talks about this message from, I think it was from the book of Enoch, where the archangels, not the archangels, but the angels that fell, that they were locked up for a certain, like hundreds, thousands of years,
Yeah.
and that supposedly they were going to be released at some point in the future. And
Mm.
so some people speculate they were released either in the 1960s or the 1940s.
Okay.
And so it was like this idea that these angels were trapped in some kind of prison, and that they were to be released upon humanity at this
Yeah.
time. So,
Yeah.
anyways, just sorry, I just
Yeah,
really
no,
interested
I don't
of that period of
apologize. I
time.
love that. And I love that you have a lot of knowledge and awareness of all of that stuff too, because there aren't many astrologers that have that information to tie into things as well. It's and so I love hearing it. And I'm not, I've my knowledge goes as far as to like reading certain articles here and there when I'm doing my research and some interesting podcasts of people who are more obsessed about the occults and Crowley and things that were occurring during that time. So I love that you have more information about that and no apologies necessary. And this is one of the things that I am also kind of hoping for and holding space for, in like what you were saying of like the different, realities, and everything kind of being fabricated. Because you're right. I believe from that point, everything is fabricated. It's part of the 100-year plan, the 100-year plan of total takeover of the human spirit and the human heart. And we're at a threshold point where it's a critical mass threshold point, and we all feel that level of intensity. And what I feel is it's complicated because there have been CIA assets over the last few years, with Neptune being in Pisces that have blown cover and or not blown maybe they blown their cover or they were told to blow their cover. I don't know. But there's been a few assets that where their whole cover was to be like a new age leader, new age love and light leader channeling messages from the Galactic Federation, you know? And these people have come out and they've said, yeah, that was all bullshit. Like I'm CIA and that was my whole career in the CIA was to be this character and to tell you guys all on the internet, that the Galactic Federation and this and that and the other, and to believe all these things. And and so it's really interesting because it can bring people to this point of like, well then what does it mean? Is there no benevolent race out there that can potentially be watching over us and can come down and meet with us and guide with us and assist us? And what's different about this Uranus and Gemini transit compared to the last one is where Pluto and Neptune are. And really Pluto, because Pluto, Aquarius is like, the other alien frequency here. And based on, the previous 79, 84 years, right? And what, the conspiracies is that during that time, we've been acquiring more and more alien technology from UFO crash landings and certain meetings. There's been secret handshakes and meetings with our government and other celestial forces, supposedly, and we have all this advanced technology and that sort of stuff. Um, and so with the Pluto and Aquarius revealing, right, revealing secrets that have been kept from humanity. And previously with the Pluto and Aquarius, this was revealing, making people aware and revealing the corruption that world governments have. So now we know, we're at a point where we know world government's fucked, it's fucked up. Look at the World Economic Forum, look at everything, look at all this stuff, it's all fucked up. And now that next stage of Pluto going into Aquarius is like, well, okay, well then give us the tech, give us the tech, tell us what been going on with the aliens and that sort of stuff. And then that's why we have movies like Disclosure Day coming out, and that movie, are you familiar with that Steven Spielberg movie that just released?
Hmm.
So that whole movie, right? That movie is tying into the last Uranus and Gemini transit, and they even say in the movie, like, we can't keep this 79-year-old secret alive anymore. And yeah, that's probably being used in some kind of way, but the whole point of the matter is like the next stage of humanity having to expand their consciousness in this whole dynamic of there being um you know uh non-Terran, you know you know
Terrestrial,
non-terrestrial beings that have been around.
Terra Earth.
But see where the smoke screen is, because like you mentioned, like the little green men and all that sort of stuff. So the smoke screen is the shadow government. So a lot of people who think they've been abducted and were used by aliens, they were actually abducted by the military.
Yeah, right. I heard
They were
about that.
adapt they were actually abducted by the military and had overlay memories for them to
Yeah,
think it was aliens.
right, right.
And so this is where things are going to get really confusing because we're going to have a lot of people that are under that brainwashing. They're under that programming where they think they've been experiencing aliens and abductions, but really it's just been military operations and that sort of stuff. And so I mean, it's gonna be, it's chaotic. It's fucking chaotic. And I do, there is a space in my heart that is hoping that something beyond the power of our Saturnian world government does interface. And have you heard of like this Brazilian psychic woman who's been saying she's been receiving prophetic dreams of a mothership UFO coming down at the final game of the FIFA World Cup soccer?
No, but that's not a surprise. I mean, these are the incursions that we're talking about, where, like we are saying, that these are going to happen again, and they're going to be the same delusional setups instead of any real kind of penetration
Right,
of what's really occurring.
right.
Real quick, couple of things. Jean Dixon was the astrologer I was talking about.
Okay.
So in early 60s, I think she said 62. It's in one of her books. I have the book somewhere. She's talking about there was the birth of an antichrist. There's rumored to be another birth of one in 97. Um, and then the other reference that you made is like, remember when, I don't know if you remember, like just like 10 years ago, David Wilcock got really famous when he started working with Corey Goode.
Right, yeah.
And then Corey Goode came out later. And I remember during that time because I was doing a lot of fairs, doing readings at fairs. And I
Hmm.
remember telling people, like, why would you go to that? Like, that's just all, nonsense. Like,
Hmm.
but not nonsense in the sense that there's extraterrestrial, interterrestrial beings, rather. There is,
Hmm.
but not the way they're portraying it. Like, they're just trying to sell you, some kind of mind control vision. And sure enough, Corey Gibb comes out years later saying, "Oh, it was all bullshit."
Yeah, right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
how did that make David Wilcock, who actually had some information initially, or throughout his life, had some information here and there,
Hmm.
and then with his
Hmm.
recent death.
Right.
But one more thing I wanted to add is that because you're saying a lot, but this gives me an opportunity to say something that I mentioned in my last video that I did with Tula. We did a video on Pluto because there's scientists saying that Pluto is dying. And so we had fun I did a play title on it saying something like, Pluto, I'm dying because my work here is done. The idea that Pluto's the awakener. And
Mm.
once Pluto does not need to awaken humanity anymore, maybe it will move on. Maybe it will pass. Maybe it will transmute. But I was playing with that idea, and someone said in the comments how I seem to be anthropomorphizing the planet. Like, how can the planet emotionally express this or that? And I was also mentioning H.P. Lovecraft.
Mm.
So H.P. Lovecraft, he wrote these books in the 20s and 30s. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Hmm.
He gets cited a lot. But, some people refer to him as this commentator did, and that's fine. I'm not disrespecting. I'm appreciating that this commentator in my chat brought this up. Brought up, like, why are you referring to H.P. Lovecraft? He's a fiction writer. Okay, so there's this short story he wrote called The Whisper in Darkness,
Hmm.
where there are multiple references to Pluto made, but the word Pluto is not said.
Mm.
Now, when Pluto was discovered, Pluto was in Gemini.
Hmm.
This was like 1932, 31, 30, somewhere around then. And the guy who discovered it, as Tula noted in the video, had Pluto in Gemini conjunct his moon by, like, I think a degree or two.
Oh, wow.
And Lovecraft wrote this story maybe a couple years after. But we all know Lovecraft is the one who introduced us to these, like, beings, right? The
Right.
Sagoth, Yog-Sothoth. In the story, he calls Pluto Yog-Sothoth. And he
Yoksaga.
keeps mentioning the planet. He doesn't say the word Pluto, but he keeps mentioning, if it wasn't for this, I wish this planet hadn't not been recently discovered. And there's all these, as he likes to do, taken from Meten and really Maupassant, the French author of the Horla. That's where he's taken, like, this whole narrative of, like, humans being unable to describe or not able to name that which is beyond space and time, that which is beyond our comprehension,
Hmm.
not being able to give name to this force.
Hmm.
And so he uses Pluto in the story as that force
Okay.
that we're unable to describe, to the point where he never utters the name Pluto or that planet that was discovered. And the correlation that I make with that is the same with all these occultists, is that Lovecraft was introducing the penetration of that force into our reality
Wow.
as it was being discovered in the guise of inimical forces that were, like, seeming monsters to us, right? Because we have nothing in our imagination which can ascribe form to that which is not visible. So then what does Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus come to represent but forces that are foreign, that are seemingly inimical, that are alien to us?
Yeah.
And what is the most alien thing to us that we can reference is insects. Insects are a form of something that is so different from the human form, from the bipedal form of the two arms, two legs, that we
Hmm.
associate very easily insects with something that is alien, something that is other. And
Yeah.
so to blow that up into these monsters that represent these forces, these planetary forces, is what Lovecraft was doing. And some think, like 1946, that Lovecraft in the 30s and 20s was opening schisms in reality for these beings to come in.
Wow.
Or even earlier, when Crowley went to Egypt with his first wife, Rose,
Uh-huh.
and through her got this whole download, this channel download, and wrote down the Book of the Law,
Wow.
which there was a drawing of an alien being in that book that looked just like a gray.
Mm.
And that was the first visible image of a gray alien. It came
Wow.
from it came from Crowley's Book of the Law.
Wow.
And this is 1904. In
Yeah.
1904, 1903 is one of those dates. I mean, that's when let's see if I can remember it. There's a book, Charles Pierce. There's a book that Charles Pierce wrote, and it was all about this strange phenomenon of that year, 1903. And he wrote a book called, let's see if I can remember the name. I'll put it, The Book of the Damned. And
Okay.
this book is like a compendium of all the strange, weird incidents that occurred around that time period. So there are all these portal dates, you know what I mean, where there's these
Mhm.
incursions upon humanity, and they all have astrological references to them.
Yeah.
1903, I'd have to look back at that chart. I don't remember, what kind of references, but I mean, I love it that you're bringing up the fact that it's Uranus and Gemini, and then I was able to reference Lovecraft's short story, The Whisper in Darkness, at a time when it was Pluto that was in Gemini.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
these are incursions of Mercury ruled the human mind with the higher octaves, so there's forces that are penetrating through.
Hmm.
Whether it penetrates as something real or not depends on what kind of realness we ascribe to these
Hmm.
outer planets, these other
Hmm.
densities and dimensions of awareness and experience.
Hmm.
Depends where we are, right? You and I are in a Saturnian 3D, three density reality right now.
Yeah.
But I could spin out, or I could for a moment I could spin out and try and remember my dreams from this morning like I did 15 minutes ago when you were starting to talk about this. I was like, what
Uh-huh.
were my dreams this morning? I had some really, did I write them down? Did I record it? Because
Yeah.
these are the incursions that are occurring constantly.
Yeah.
But anyways, just that, because you get me into, you're into this, so you get me into it, and I start
Yeah,
going.
no, I love it. I love it. It's like, it makes me wish we didn't live in separate ends of the country. I'd love to come over, hang out, and chat all freaking night about this stuff. Yeah, you really blew me away with a lot of that stuff you were saying. And you know, with where we're at now, because one of the things that's so different about now and all of these other previous cycles and eras is the level of technology we have integrated in our everyday life. It wasn't like this during the last Uranus and Gemini transit. It wasn't like this at the turn of the 20th century, in the
Is it, is
1900s.
it the, is it the level of tech, or is it the level of terraforming from a different alien kind of incursion?
What do you mean by terraforming? What do you mean?
I mean that, with data centers, with these
Uh-huh.
strange incursions of radiation radiating humans and how our fields are being affected.
Yes, that's what I'm talking.
That's
That's what I'm.
terraforming.
That's yeah. So I like that, and I don't really know what proper words are for it. I just have the words that I can associate and grab and use. So and that's why I appreciate your Virgo energy of like really fine tuning. Like, what exactly are you saying? Is it this or is it that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just threw a word at it.
Throw a word at it. Oh, it
But
sticks.
yeah, but yeah, the difference is like, that our technology and the terraforming of it, like we have all these power lines everywhere, right? And this has created a grid over our heads of EMF frequencies. That was one of the beginnings of terraforming it, because these power lines could be made underground, you know. They don't have to be on poles above the ground. So that's already creating a barrier, a frequency barrier. And then now we
A
have the
frequency cage, because we have it
exactly
below and we have it
frequency,
above.
exact, yep. And right, exactly. And we have the cell phones, the data centers, and with all of the rituals, and like the rituals that occurred during the previous times we were talking about that Babylonian ritual you were saying, and all these things where we've brought in, or not we, but they brought in these energies. And, many have said that it was around that time is when these entities or these fallen angels is when the powers that be started to receive the blueprint on how to create the type of terraforming we're in now. Because these frequencies, these energies, they are empowered by the way our current civilization is set up. Because our technology, the powers, the cables, the EMFs, all of this stuff can be designed in a completely different way that is in harmony with Earth's divine template. All of this contradicts Earth's divine template. harmony, all of it insults it, it pollutes it, it distorts the frequencies, just like how they changed the frequency of music from what is it, 432 hertz to like 434. They did that subtle shift in the frequency. It brings us out of the resonance of the golden
440, I
ratio,
think 440. Yeah, they switched it
440,
from
right?
4
So
something to
so
440.
so all the way everything is, it's out of sync of the golden ratio, the harmony, the divine template. And when we come into like archonic energies, right? Frequencies and all these little gremlins and stuff like that. This is what I believe what people are going to really suffer from unless you're somebody that has been, really doing that work to discern and distinguish and kind of cultivate and build your Noah's Ark, because we're being flooded right now. And this flood this time isn't by water, this flood is by this, air frequency technology type of energies overwhelming the mind. And, for example, like the algorithms and the ads and the potential of Neuralink and metaverse and all this stuff, it's like I can I've gone through moments where I'm not even on my phone or on any kind of technology, and there's little frequency disruptions that are trying to entice my mind to like buy something or hop online to the markets, and like it's trying to take my energy and attention into things. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
so,
it's not. In other words, what you're saying is this is not right here. It's not just right here. As soon as I put this down, there's something else right here that's
uh-huh.
advertising to me,
Uh-huh.
or something here that's like moving in this. We're underwater in a sea of frequencies,
Yes.
and
Yes.
there's like forces trying to sell us things in every space possible around
Uh-huh.
us,
So like
trying to buy our distraction out of
do you have a
our sense
Wi-Fi
of self.
modem in your house right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So that thing is emitting a lot of fucking frequencies that can penetrate the walls. Then
Yeah.
you have your phone that's doing the same thing. And you're in between your computer, your phone, your modem, you're triangulated. Okay. And then there's constant radio broadcast frequencies. Okay. And just like how anybody can start hearing a song in their head, and then they'll turn on, radio FM station, and that song is playing in their head. What really happened? Were you psychic? Were you intuitive? Or did your antenna just so happen to tap into a frequency that's already being broadcasted in the sea of air that you were able to hear that? And we know that's possible with voice to skull technology and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's not
And
just
we know that that's already happening, not
been
even with
happening.
that technology. Like, there's a great Francis, maybe I'll put it on the cover of this video. There's a great Francis Bacon painting where it's like this guy, he's like this, he's in a corner of a room, and there's a window behind him, and his head is melting into the fabric of the window, of the opening of the window.
Oh wow.
So there's no separation between his mind, his brain, his physical head, and the window behind him. It's like the
Mm,
same
hmm
thing,
hmm
right? And in human design, we got that open or defined uh, ajna center and then head center, meaning to say, like, just or anyone with an open head center is vulnerable to the processing of the collective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just as a lot of us are when we sleep. I mean, it's always been
Yeah.
open. These are open frequencies that pass through us.
Yep. Yep.
And so, yeah, it's always what you tune into. Distraction is evil. Is the only
Yes.
thing that's evil is what Kafka said. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
it's
Yes. I love
distraction.
that.
That's evil is just distraction
Distraction is
from the
evil.
self, from coming back to the self, from that, not just coming back to the self, but a pattern of checking in everything with the self, right? A
Hmm.
circular reference, right? A circle of life, energetic, and not Fibonacci sequence, but crystal code, right? Something that's earth, an earth frequency,
Yes.
not this foreign Fibonacci codes and frequencies that Gary's gone over on his channel over and over again ad infinitum to get people to, pay attention to and understand that there's competing frequencies
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
for our heart to frequence with. And
Yes.
our heart in itself is a portal.
Yes.
It is a process by which information is coming in and out, and
I mean,
we're
it
processing
generates a
things.
toroidal field,
Hmm.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah, we're walking songs, right? We're walking
Literally.
songs.
Yeah.
But yet
And
we're being in the middle of the video I did with who was it with? Was it with Tula or was it in one of the no, in the video yesterday I did with Gary and Isabella. Um, she was mentioning something about looking up at the sky and the lyrics to Metallica's um what's that song from Masters of Puppets, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Time
uh-huh,
Marches On.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah, those lyrics came into my head, and I had to like say, "Oh, I just heard in my head this Metallica song," because in my head I was going through all the lyrics of the song,
Yeah.
because I know it so well, and we were talking about war, and we were talking about penetrating through the metaphor of war, right,
Mhm.
for what's really happening.
Mhm.
And I brought up, and I'm going to bring it again now because I think you're going to love it. I brought up this story, this dream I had in 2003 where I had this dream of these people. We were all in the mountains, and we were all separated from each other like 10, 20 feet. And we were all looking up in the sky. And, the lyrics to the Metallica is look up to the sky just before you die. It's the last time you will. And it's more dark, more warlike, right?
Mhm.
Quoting that book by Hemingway. And in the dream, though, we're all looking up in the sky and we see these alien ships
Mm.
and they're rising into the sky. They're rising high into space, and then all of a sudden they turn around like birds of prey, and they start coming down on us as if they're going to crash into us. But in the dream, I had these conscious thoughts where I said, "They're not going to land on us or on
Mm.
the earth. They're going to land in our minds."
Oh shit.
And I caught at that time my mind was faster than the penetration of that idea or that incursionary force,
Uh-huh.
whatever it was attempting to wash my mind. I caught it because I recognized that the metaphor, that the literal reality wasn't what was happening. It was an attempted takeover of my mind.
Wow.
And I caught it because in my mind, in the dream, I said, they're not going to land on the ground on these mountains. They're gonna
Uh-huh.
land it. They're gonna try to land in my mind.
Wow.
And I had my buddy do a little like image of it that I'm probably gonna just do my own video on it on my channel so everyone can see the image he did,
Yeah.
and and I'll tell that story again. But I think it's so important because I think it's the metaphor for our time to not forget that.
Yeah.
Not forget that what we see is not necessarily what's out there. And it's not necessarily what's out there. It could be what's inside or what's attempting to get inside.
Yes. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. And something that I feel, as a Gemini sun and a Gemini moon in the eighth house, I've something that I've kind of been telling
That's so
people.
intense.
I know it's really intense. And
Right now it is
yeah,
because of the Uranus
Uranus is
transit.
I got Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune just like, oh,
They're triangulating on your
they're trying,
consciousness right now.
they're like, yes,
That's
be the
crazy.
messenger, right? Speak your mind, speak what you're tapping into is what I'm feeling. Even if it's crazy, even if you're wrong, just say the freak thing, because it's going to create a ripple. Anyways, um so I'm trying to like redeem the Gemini archetype, because in the critical masses, one of the most hated signs is Gemini. My entire 20 years of being an astrologer.
I got to give you a 5 minute warning. I got to get off in 5
Okay.
minutes, but we'll
Okay.
come back on in 15 minutes.
Oh,
So we'll
okay.
make this a part one, and then we can
Okay.
go right into the part two.
Oh yeah, that's
Is
cool.
that
Yeah.
cool? So we'll
Yeah.
get a 15-minute break in.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
you got 5 minutes to wrap it up, and then we'll come back on.
So the archetype of Gemini is being redeemed because it was banished to a lower frequency for many years, because in order to enslave humanity, we need to enslave and limit the mind, which is free thinking and the truth and information. So we kind of needed to dumb down and degrade the Gemini archetype of thinking and tapping into information that is not coming from the physical reality, but rather coming from your thought and the ability to tune in to the vast quantum realms that the mind is able to access. Because the mind is, is experienced through the brain, which is this physiological organ in the head. But in the mind, we can close our eyes and I can imagine the moon and visualize myself in the moon, remote viewing. There's no
And that's
limit.
just as real. And that's just as real
And
because the
that's
mind's a
just as
receiver.
real. Exactly. So the mind is a limitless, vast space that can access the quantum realms and multidimensionality. And Uranus being in Gemini is liberating the mind and trying to get people to awaken and understand this whole other plane that's just as real as the physical world, if not even more real, because it's the state before manifesting into the real. And the Gemini archetype is finally being liberated and rising to be able to now speak and channel information coming on from high places or from other places that sort of contradict and challenge how our perspective is in experiencing this reality. And I personally believe that the whole campaign of degrading the Gemini energy, is reasons why stupid shit like the Salem witch trials, occurred, right? She's a witch, right? It's like it's just stupidity across the board, and you're just doing things with no really thinking, and it's wrong, you know what I mean? And so like banishing that Gemini energy to a degraded state was limiting the ability to speak freely and to challenge things where collective hypnosis is just kind of leading them towards. So this is, Uranus and Gemini is kind of like bringing back that like wild card, rebellious, free thinking energy of just fucking speaking information that's coming from out of the box. So that's my little 5 minute spiel
All
there.
right, cool, cool. Okay, we'll come back, man. Thanks. No, it's good. I just love to say to that too because um, that's the trickery aspect of Gemini, though, right? Is to say that they're witches, when they were just it was a land grab,
Yeah.
or it was saying everyone's witches when they were something else, but they were just hiding that fact to
Hmm.
call them. You know what I mean? Like there's all these tricky ways, right,
Right.
to call
Right.
something out,
Yeah.
right? If you associate it with this, then you could call it out this way, and But yeah, and Pluto. It's so funny too. You say this because Pluto and Gemini at the time Lovecraft was writing, Lovecraft was obsessed with saying, understanding these beings is destroying my mind, and then you got Pluto
Uh-huh.
destroying the mind of humanity in Gemini.
Uh-huh.
It's
Uh-huh.
crazy.
I love that. I
You
love
can't make
that.
it up, dude. The astrological references are just like right on there.
Hmm.
Okay, so we'll be back on, you guys. We're gonna call this our part one, and then hopefully in the part two we'll get to the last two charts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All
End
right.
recording.
You're recording.
Okay. Do I just pause it?